how can you have a good life? How can there be a good life? How can there be, al-hayatu tayyibah? Yet this is the reality of what you have to go through. So how can you have a good life at the same time as this being the reality of all of the trials and tribulations that you are put through? And so, this is the reality of people. Allah Azza wa Jal has created them in this way. However, He didn't just leave him to die upon grief. There has to be something else. Otherwise, a person would simply just die with grief. And in fact, this is what you see the people of disbelief. People of disbelief, the people who do not believe in the hereafter, the people who are not, do not receive satisfaction by way of worshipping Allah and making dhikr of Allah. This is what they eventually die of. A whole lifetime of hardships, calamities, difficulties, disease, loss of wealth, loss of life, grief, sadness, whatever, and then at the end of it you die. So it's not possible that Allah Azza wa Jal has left His slaves and His servants, to simply die from grief after He created them in toil and hardship. Rather, we see that Allah Azza wa Jal has given them a promise. And this promise, which is actually in this verse, this is the verse that we're going to discuss inshallah ta'ala in the remainder of this lesson. So in this verse, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, Man amila salihan, whoever works righteous deeds, min dhakarin aw untha, whether he be a male or a female, wa huwa mu'min, while he is a believer, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً, then we shall certainly give for him a good life. We will make him live a good life. وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ, we shall also give them their reward, بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And then we shall certainly reward them, or give them their reward upon the best of that which they used to do. This is Surah Al-Nahl, Surah 16, verse number 97. So here we can see that Allah Azza wa Jal has promised, this is a promise from Allah Azza wa Jal, to whoever worked righteous deeds, male or female, and He ascribed, like the action, He ascribed it to Himself, because He said, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ. So He ascribed it to Himself, which means that man will have a good life. And so something similar in other verses in the Quran as well. For example, the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, وَمَا نُرْسِلُ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ, that we did not send the messengers except as those who give glad tidings and as those who warn. And then He says, فَمَنْ آمَنَ وَأَصْلَحَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. So whoever believes and rectifies his affair, there will be no fear upon them, nor shall they grieve. What is the meaning of this? Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said, مُبَشِّرِينَ بِسِعَةِ الرِّزْقِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالثَّوَابِ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. Mubashirin, meaning that the messengers are sent to give the people glad tidings that you will have rizq, you will have vast rizq, sustenance in this life and a reward in the hereafter. And similarly, we also know that Allah Azza wa Jal has taught us in the Quran that when we ask Him, we ask, that amongst the people are those وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً. Amongst them are those who say, "O our Lord, give us in the life of this world that which is good, and in the hereafter that which is good. وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, and save us from the punishment of the fire." So, as you can clearly see, there's one thing, which is that we are born into a life of difficulty and toil and hardship and pain and suffering and so on and so forth. That's just the reality of life. Allah has created us and put us into that situation. On the other hand, He has also given us a promise. And that promise is that if you are a believer and you do righteous deeds upon Iman, you will be given a good life, an upright, wholesome life. Which means that it is perfectly possible. There's no contradiction between going through toil and struggle and hardship and trials and at the same time having a good life. And we can only understand this if we understand what is the meaning of a good life, right? We can only understand this reconciliation between these two things if we understand exactly what is a good life. So when we see what that means and we pay careful attention to the statements of some of the scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn Taymiyyah and others, we will see how this makes perfect sense. That you can be in toil, struggle, pain, suffering, trials, tribulations, loss, harm, yet at the same time you can be enjoying a good life. So how can this be? And so this is what we are going to explore inshallah ta'ala in what follows in this lesson. So what follows is really a commentary upon this verse. Right? Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha, that ayah in Surah An-Nahl. It's a commentary upon that particular verse. So the scholars have obviously differed. They've given different interpretations on what is the meaning of al-hayatul tayyibah, which is mentioned in these verses in the Quran. And we'll summarize what the various statements are. So the first meaning is annahu ar-rizqul halal. Ar-rizqul halal. So the first thing that it means to have a halal provision, a halal sustenance. So what you earn and what you eat out of what you earn, all of it is from halal, pure, lawful, wholesome, sources. This is the statement of Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, Ad-Dhahhak, Sa'id ibn Jubair, Ata, and others. This is the first meaning. The second meaning, and obviously as you will know as we continue, there's no contradiction between these meanings. All of these meanings are true at the same time because they're all different aspects of the overall meaning of the good life. So the second meaning is al-qana'ah. Al-qana'ah. And this means to be content, to be satisfied. And this is one of the key meanings, to be content and to be satisfied. This is a statement of Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, and likewise Ibn Abbas and Ikrimah, Wahab ibn Munabbih, Al-Hasan al-Basri and others. And this meaning here, to be content, to be satisfied, this really is, it's in fact, it's the view that Imam al-Tabari rahimahullah, he preferred it. He said this is the most correct saying. Even though the other sayings are also obviously correct at the same time. But he said that this is the most correct saying. It is the one who said, he said, وَأَوْلَى الْأَقْوَالِ بِالصَّوَابِ قَوْلُ مَنْ قَالَ تأويل ذلك فلنحيينه حياة طيبة بالقناعة. So the most correct statement is the statement of the one who said, we shall give him, or we shall make him to have a good, wholesome life by way of contentedness, by way of being content or satisfied. And this is because and he says ذلك أن من قنعه الله بما قسم له من رزق. He says this is because the one whom Allah has made to be satisfied with whatever He has apportioned for him of rizq, then this person will not then, he will not start pursuing the world, and he will not tire himself out, and he will not start to become upset and angry with the affairs in his life, and he won't start to become angry and upset about the things that didn't come to him, that passed him by, and he will not be eager for the things that, that didn't come to him. Right? If you look at most people, why they are not content, why don't they have a feeling of being satisfied and content in their hearts? Why are they not happy in their hearts? Is because they are not content. And when they are not content, what the heart does is starts chasing after this, and chasing after that, and chasing after this, and chasing after that. And because that may not have been decreed for that person, then these other feelings of grief and sadness and anger and frustration, all of these things start to arise. Right? So this person is obviously can't really be content. So At-Tabari continues, and he explains that the reason why this is the most correct interpretation is if you look at the context of this verse, or the sequence of this verse. Because before this verse, if you go back a few verses earlier, 2 or 3 verses earlier, in those verses Allah Azza wa Jal is speaking about using your making oaths and swearing. وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ دَخَلًا بَيْنَكُمْ. Do not make these oaths that you make between you as a means of deceit, right? Where you trick and deceive each other. No, I swear I will do this, and I swear I will give you this and this, and you start making these oaths between yourselves in order to deceive each other, and then as a result you slip, and you then fall into evil. You are given a taste of evil, meaning you are punished for that in this life before you are punished in the hereafter. So because this is the sequence of verses, it shows that the general meaning that is being addressed is one of being content. Right? Because people who are not content, they are willing to cheat and deceive and use oaths or to swear as a means of deception between people to get things that they wouldn't otherwise get. Right? So it's in a sequence of the passage is like this. So therefore, when this verse appears, man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha, right, and it mentions the good life, then it's speaking about a person being content. And then Al-Tabari continues and he says, as for those who say, like Ibn Abbas and others, that this verse means ar-rizqul halal, he says that this, what this means is, and pay attention to this, is it means that Allah Azza wa Jal has given him such rizq, such sustenance, that will make him content even if it is little. Alright? A rizqul halal does not mean a tremendous amount and huge amount and lots of sustenance. It just simply means that he's given him from lawful sustenance which makes him content. So it returns back to content. In other words, the first meaning, ar-rizqul halal, it's true, but it's connected to the second meaning. Right? Which means that you are given such a rizq that you are actually content with. You are content with. And then he continues and he says, when a person is content, his soul does not then seek more. This is what the meaning is. Not the meaning that he is given lots of sustenance from the halal. And this we know from direct observation and experience. As At-Tabari says, he says, we see that most of those who work and do righteous deeds for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and do deeds which are pleasing to Him, if you look in the world and you see most of the people, what do you see? You don't see that these people have been given tremendous amounts of wealth and tremendous amount of provision in this world. Rather, we see most people who are basically generally, they tend to be poor. They're living in hard, difficult circumstances, and mostly they don't have, they're not living in plenty. and ease, but they are living in difficult circumstances. Most of the people who are worshipping Allah, obedient to Him, struggling, striving, they have little sustenance, but they are content with what they have got. And that's why, like they say, this is what they say, developed and undeveloped countries, or first world and third world countries, they use these terms. But if you take someone who is a worker in a far east country, or in some Asian country, and he has to have his labor, and he makes his labor, he comes home, he's able to feed his family, his wife, his kids, but he's got a big heart, happy heart, content heart. He is he is content. And yet you can have some spoiled, rotten child who's bought an expensive car for a 16th, 18th birthday, and will be so upset that they didn't get the better one. Right? It will probably cost $50,000, $100,000 or pounds, but they're angry that they didn't get the one that cost 130, 150. Right? So this is not being content. And so how is such a person going to get through the trials and tribulations of life if this is something that makes them angry and discontented? See the difference? So most of the people of the world who it's not the case that you have to have lots of rizq and you have to have plenty of plentiful, and no, ar-rizqul halal, which was the first meaning, is tied to the second, which is al-qana'ah. You are content with what you have got. You are satisfied with what you have got. And this is the affair of most of the people of the world. And similarly, this same meaning, Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah ta'ala, in his tafsir, likewise, Fath al-Qadir, he also inclines towards the same interpretation, and he says that this verse, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً, this is the description of Ahlul Qana'ah, the people of contentedness, the people who are content. And this is the actual good life that is mentioned in the verse. Innahum Ahlul Qana'ah. They are the people of satisfaction, the people who are content. And these are the people he describes. These are the people who they suffice themselves with whatever Allah has given them, and whatever comes to them, they are content, and they submit themselves to Allah Azza wa Jal. And if they themselves are asked to contribute or to sacrifice or to give someone their right, meaning someone who is in need of charity or something, then they spend from what they have whenever they are asked. And likewise, they always turn to Allah, and Allah makes them to be His trustworthy ones, and He makes them to be rulers upon the earth, and they rule or judge the people with the same thing that they would happily judge themselves. Right? So this is the meaning here of being content. This is the second main meaning, and the third meaning is to be given tawfiq in obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is the third meaning of al-hayatu tayyibah. To be given tawfiq, to be given success, that Allah gives you success to His obedience, to acts of righteousness, to deeds of righteousness, because these lead you to Allah's pleasure. This was said by Ad-Dhahhak rahimahullah. He said, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. It means, مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فِي فَاقَةٍ أَوْ he says that whoever does righteous deeds whilst he is a believer, whether he is in difficulty or hardship or need or in ease, then his life is a good life. And whoever turns away from Allah's remembrance and does not believe and does not work righteous deeds, then his life will be a narrow, constricted life. There will not be any goodness therein. Right? So this now is the third meaning. What does it mean to have a good life? It means that you are obedient. You are given a life of obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. That is the good life. And irrespective of the toil, the hardship, the difficulty, the pain, the suffering, all those things, no. That's just something Allah's put you in as something that's the nature of your creation. But the good life is to be obedient to Him. And each person knows this from his own experience. Am I obedient? Am I disobedient? Do I fall short? Do I exceed? And so to that extent, you know that you have the good life. The fourth meaning is very similar. Basically, it's the same as the third meaning, really, but said in a different way. His life, to have one's life occupied in obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is a statement of Muqatil bin Hayyan and Al-Ish fi Ta'ah, meaning that your life is spent in obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal. And Imam Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he, after mentioning all of these different sayings as well, he said that the good life, al-hayatu tayyiba yashmalu hadha kullahu, the good life encompasses all of this, as occurs in the hadith which is reported by Imam Muslim and others. And this is a hadith of Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As, that the Messenger of Allah said, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ أَسْلَمَ وَرُزِقَ كَفَافًا وَقَنَّعَهُ اللَّهُ بِمَا آتَاهُ. So he said, he who submits, the one who becomes a Muslim, he has prospered and who has been given sufficient rizq, meaning rizq which suffices him, and whom Allah has made to be content with what He has given him. Right? So, this is the one who will be prosperous. That you submit, that you receive what suffices you, and then you are happy and content with what you have received. This is the prosperous one. Hadith reported by Muslim. And likewise, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he also gave an explanation of this, which basically gives another layer to the meaning, which is an even deeper meaning. And he says, Allah Azza wa Jal has made the good life to the people who have knowledge of Him and who love Him and who worship Him. And then he mentions the same verse, Man amila salihan bin dhakarin aw untha wa huwa mu'min falanuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyibah وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Right, so mentions the same verse, and then he says that this meaning of the word al-hayatu tayyiba in this ayah has been explained by al-qana'a, al-rida, al-rizq al-hasan, wa ghayru dhalik. He says that the mufassirun have given these various interpretations to this word here, al-hayatu tayyiba, to be content, to be pleased, to receive good, sustenance and other such things. And then he says, was-sawab, and that which is correct, أنها حياة القلب, right? ونعيمه وبهجته وسروره بالإيمان ومعرفة الله ومحبته والإنابة إليه والتوكل إليه عليه. So he says, but that which is correct is that the good life means the life of the heart, and the bliss of the heart, and the pleasure and happiness of the heart with Iman, and with knowledge of Allah, and with love of Allah, and turning back to Him, and putting reliance upon Him. Because there is no life more wholesome and good than the life of the one who has all of these things. And there is no bliss above this bliss. Right? There's no bliss better than all of this, meaning that the heart's knowledge of Allah, the heart's pleasure, the heart's bliss with having Iman. Meaning the fact that you are a believer and that you have Iman, and that you being happy that Allah Azza wa Jal has saved you from disbelief and from polytheism and from misguidance, and He's given you Iman, right? And that you are on that path, that you are happy with that, this is the meaning of a good life, right? This is the good life. And there is no pleasure, no bliss that anyone can have on this life that is better than this bliss and this pleasure. Meaning, your knowledge that you believe in Allah and His angels, His books and messengers and so on and so forth, that you are upon the haqq, and that He has bestowed a favor upon you with this Iman, and the feeling of pleasure and bliss that this brings you, there's nothing on this world which is a greater pleasure than that. Neither in any food, not in any drink, not in any clothing, neither in any possession. There's nothing greater than that, except for one thing, which is the bliss of paradise itself, which is the reward and the bliss of paradise itself. Like He says, illa na'im al-jannah, except the bliss of paradise. And He says that some of the knowledgeable people used to say, إِنَّهُ لَتَمُرُّ بِهِ أَوْقَاتٌ يَقُولُ فِيهَا إِنْ كَانَ أَهْلُ الْجَنَّةِ فِي مِثْلِ هَذَا إِنَّهُمْ لَفِي عِيشٍ طَيِّبٍ. He said some of the people of knowledge used to say that he would say that sometimes there are such there are such times and situations that pass by a person of like feelings of happiness, right? Sometimes there are certain times when you undergo such feelings of happiness. He's speaking here about happiness with Iman, with acts of worship, with tawakkul upon Allah. Like, sometimes your heart undergoes these states of strong Iman, and you feel them and you feel the pleasure of them. And he's saying that there are certain times when you feel these things and you think to yourself that if this is what the people of paradise will feel, if they are in this type of bliss and pleasure, then indeed they are having a good life, right? So in other words, some people they they are made to experience and made to feel a type of pleasure and bliss that allows you to kind of feel and sense what it would be like for the people of paradise, what they would be feeling. And if that's what they are feeling, obviously it's much more and much better, then indeed that is indeed, like he said, إِنَّهُمْ لَفِي عِيشٍ طَيِّبٍ, then indeed they are a good life. They are in a good life. Right? So in other words, they will have this constant bliss. This is what they will be feeling all the time. So once we understand this, and then he continues, in fact, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says, and when the life of the heart is the good life, then obviously the limbs will follow as well. Right? So if in the heart there is the bliss and the pleasure with Iman and all of those other things, the limbs by necessity will follow, because the heart is the king of the limbs. And this is why Allah Azza wa Jal, He said in the Quran that Allah Azza wa Jal made the narrow, constricted, difficult life for the one who turns away from His remembrance. And this is the opposite of the good life. Right? So here, it works both ways. If there is in your heart the belief in Allah, love of Allah, turning to Him, reliance upon Him, right? This is the actual true good life. This will bring you this pleasure and this bliss. This in turn will then affect your limbs, and your limbs will then obey and act in the pleasure of Allah. But the reverse is true as well. That if you turn away from Allah Azza wa Jal, and your limbs and your tongue and things like that, they don't remember Allah Azza wa Jal, because the limbs are tied to the heart are tied to the limbs, then you will have a narrow, constricted, difficult life, because you turn away from the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And likewise, Imam Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that anyone who attaches himself only to the Creator and doesn't have these attachments to the creation, these unhealthy attachments, right? Unhealthy attachments meaning unhealthy attachment to wealth, unhealthy attachment to others besides Allah Azza wa Jal, to wealth, to authority, to power, to lust, desires where he's pulled in different directions. Person who is attached only to Allah Azza wa Jal, he is captivated and enslaved only by Allah Azza wa Jal, then he will have a good life. He will have ease and pleasure in this life, and his tawheed will be perfect. Just like if it was the other way around, if there's deficiency in his iman and in his tawheed, then all the doors of anxiety, al-humum, al-ghumum, anxiety and grief and stress and ruin, all these things will be present with him. So you can see here from all of these scholars, and likewise Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَلِهَذَا لَا تَجِدْ أَحَدًا أَنْعَمَ بَالًا وَلَا أَشْرَحَ صَدْرًا وَلَا أَشَدَّ طُمْأَنِينَةً فِي قَلْبِهِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِ أَبَدًا. For this reason, you will never ever find anybody who is in a better state, a better condition, and nor with a greater, more, large chest, and nor, in greater tranquility in his heart than a believer. You're not going to find on the face of this earth, from all of the people of the earth, not a Yahudi, not a Nasrani, not a mulhid, atheist, or a Buddhist, or a Hindu, anyone from all the people of the earth, one who has these qualities, right, in greater pleasure, greater bliss, with an open, expansive chest, in great tranquility, than a believer. Even حتى وإن كان فقيرا, even if he was in poverty, even if he was poor, because he says فالمؤمن أشد الناس انشراحا, a believer is the most severe of people in being, having a large heart and an open chest. وأشد الناس اطمئنانا, and the most severe of people in being at ease and tranquil. And then he mentions the verse in the Quran, the very same verse that we just read. مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى, whoever works righteous deeds, whether male or female, whilst he is a believer, we shall give him a good life, and we shall reward them on the basis of the best of the deeds that they used to do. So we can see from all of this that the richness and the tranquility is the tranquility of the heart. And it's the heart that governs whether you have a good life or a narrow, restricted life. Whether you are content and satisfied and tranquil, or whether you are plagued with, like he said, al-humum, wal-ghumum, wal-hasarat, the grief, anxiety, stress. You bring this upon yourself because you are not content. You choose not to be content. If you are content, these things will not come to you. They will not affect you. But if you are not content, you will invite these states and conditions upon yourself, right? Of these anxieties and stresses. So, all of these meanings that we've looked at, we've seen the meaning of, al-rizqul halal, al-qana'a, and al-tawfiq fi al-ta'at, being granted success in obedience to Allah, or a life of obedience, or being content, or having lawful sustenance. All of these, we see that the verse basically comprises all of these meanings. And all of the Mufassirun are agreed that this is referring to the life of this world. Meaning this verse isn't speaking about the hereafter. It's speaking right here in the life of this world. Right? This is the meaning of the good life. And as you can see, there's no conflict or contradiction between having a good life, but at the same time, being in poverty, or having trials or tribulations or hardships. There's no conflict between these two. And we know this from experience, from maybe millions of people all across the world living in different circumstances, different situations. You can find, maybe a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old child, maybe let's say in Syria somewhere, all his family have been killed or murdered, whatever. But this child is out on the streets earning something, selling seeds or whatever it might be, earning a living, and he'll be the most content of people. You wouldn't even know what's happened to him. And then you'll find some, spoilt brat in the West somewhere, like I said, fed and clothed day and night, and he will have a fit and a tantrum if he isn't given a present or something which is 50% more expensive than what he actually got. You see, right? This is a person who's not content. Well, a child is totally content, and so all of this, like we said, there is no conflict between trials, tribulations, difficulty, poverty, pain in the body, illness, grief. There's no conflict between that and between being content and having a good life. So Ibn al-Qayyim